Hello and welcome back to Season of War. Today we're back going through another match from the recent Critical Hit ITC event that I went to with a couple of my competitive teammates. And we're going to be going over round 2 and my game with Deepkin against the Daughters of Cain. Daughters were played by my buddy Oliver, who I've had a ton of games with, and he's a great player, always have a lot of fun playing with him. And he was bringing Calebron as his sub-faction for his army today. So a little bit more tuned towards the shooting meta, which unfortunately doesn't help him out in this matchup against me. But getting into it, obviously starting out with deployment, I really, as you can see, was deploying almost nothing on the board to start with. I had my Soul Strider in the Ether Sea, and then I put my first two drops in the Ether Sea as well, so he didn't know where anything was going, and then just dropping down birds again. Just not really giving him any information about where my units are going or how I'm going to be positioning. You can see my boats, my terrain pieces are both hemming him in his corner of his deployment. A lot of his stuff doesn't have fly, so throwing those obstacles there are just going to be a huge nuisance. The one on the top in particular is going to really, well, I guess both really hamper him from getting towards the objectives. Obviously you can move around them, but it just kind of creates a choke point. Worth noting also, his first drop was his Blood Sisters, the unit of 5 that's on the right side of the screen. He has a unit of 10 down in the bottom, but that unit of 5, as soon as I saw him dropping those, it gave me a plan for turn 1. I knew he was going to likely give me the turn because, again, with the threat of the double, it's just not worth taking first for him. So late in my deployment, I actually deployed a unit of 3 Morsar Guard right in the center, right on the line, as close as I could get. Assuming he's going to give me first, that unit's just going to run straight into those Blood Sisters. Ideally take them out because they should be able to chew through most of them. But the big thing is I'm actually going to be able to create a roadblock in front of the witches to delay him getting to that objective in the top right. So that was like a pre-game. His first drop allowed me to really put a game plan together for what I wanted to do. Now going into my turn 1, obviously this is all about positioning here. Outside of that one move I have planned with those offensive eels, what I'm going to be doing is just trying to be repositioning and screening out the board. I know Oliver with Calebron has a teleport, which obviously is something you always have to take into account, so you can see I just start spreading out. I throw those offensive eels into the 5 Blood Sisters, and you see I'm making sure I don't tag the unit of witches in behind because I don't want them piling in and starting to get attacks on me. Also, let me position them, those 3 Morsar, right within 6 of my boat, also giving me a 5 of Feel No Pain. Being able to take a few more hits from the Blood Sisters, and potentially a little more survivable once the witches go in on his turn. Outside of that though, not a super significant turn for me. You can see I have, birds on the left, defensive eels on the right, and in the middle, kind of screening out, not giving him a lot of options in terms of where he can, teleport or deep strike. I know he's not, can't screen out the whole board. As we see on his turn 1, he immediately transforms Marathi and is going to end up teleporting her and throwing her forward to the objective, as well as bringing in some of the Canary Life Takers, the melee ones, on with her to threaten and push on that objective. So the way it works is he actually would have teleported small Marathi before transforming her, and then once teleported outside of 9, when she transforms, she comes down in the same spot, and because of the larger base size, her charge becomes like 7 inches or something, rather than the 9 you would expect after a teleport. Just the mechanics and getting to do it in that order helps a little bit with the charge. I think it was Marathi's either spell or gaze. It must have been her spell. Took out 2 of the birds there. So reducing my bodies on, and then the Canary Life Takers, again, running to the objective just to get more bodies on there and outnumber me. There was a gap in the middle of the board where he teleported his Life Takers. Now, I knew that gap was there, and I actually purposely left that, trying to bait Marathi actually going into my Akkalian King. Again, I have Cloud of Midnight. I'm going to be able to tie Marathi up. Basically, we're both not going to be doing anything. And then she'd just be in a position where she's not on an objective, potentially. Only downside is she could have gotten into one of my unit's wheels and still hit them, but it meant Marathi wouldn't be fighting on an objective, which, again, in this mission is extra points. So he also retreated the 2 remaining Blood Sisters out of combat on the right side to make room for the witches going in. Again, we knew they were all getting in, so we weren't being too precise about movement or anything. He had a large charge. But obviously a lot of attacks here. I'm expecting my Morsar to die, but really their purpose was just to hit those Blood Sisters and get in the way. It prevented Oliver from getting his witches up into the objective and fighting, my defensive eels, to take that point away. So it means I'm scoring it for 1, potentially 2 turns before he has a chance to get onto it. And Oliver actually ends up winning priority here and taking the double turn, which honestly isn't bad for me. I usually try and position so that I'm fine with getting double turned early. If I win priority here, I try to give it away so that I can get a double later, and then I'm not playing fearful. I don't have to worry about my opponent getting 2 turns in a row. So being a high drop list, if I can play defensively, it allows me to take 2 turns without actually taking very heavy of losses, and then come back and potentially get a devastating double turn later in the game. Obviously, he's just repositioning now, getting closer to all the objectives, so he would have scored his bottom 2 right ones, and would have ended up scoring an additional point for each of his heroes on his 2 objectives. But, making a lot of charges now into top of round 2. We were actually talking about this during the game, but on the bottom left objective, I actually think it was an error to send the Canary in that instance, just because they are so weak and cannot take it. So I'll probably be able to kill the Canary or a number of them to actually reclaim that objective, depending on how much damage Marathi is able to do. But it actually just puts him in a scary position. I think he went in with Marathi first, and then I went with my defensive eels on the top right. Again, I killed a number of the witches up there. They were doing, potentially some mortals back when they die, but again, I was already reducing bodies down there. Again, those 2 Ishlayan eels then at the bottom killed 4 of the Canary, and I did have 1 bird remaining who then, piled in because all the attacks were done. And man, so that puts me 3-2 on the objective. So he actually does not claim the objective, so he loses 2 points here. Again, he would have scored an extra 1 for Marathi. So I think he could have just thrown Marathi in there, and even if he doesn't do any damage, at least he's not losing the objective. So now into my turn. Obviously, this is bottom of 2. I love bottom of 2 because it means I have chance of the double into 3, which is huge. So I retreat my defensive eels out, just to stay alive and stay on that objective, not really give Marathi any reason, any opportunity to kill more stuff, as well as bringing in my other defensive eels. It actually is interesting, but because I killed his Canary in his turn and denied the objective from him, it actually means that I took control of it in his turn, and I don't score points in his turn. So then in my next turn, so bottom of round 2, I'm actually already in control of the objective, so I don't get the additional point for taking it because I did not take it this turn. Little nuance about this mission, and rarely comes up that you lose an objective on your own turn. But the way it works is I end up not getting that extra point because of it. But I still denied him 2 points, so hugely beneficial in my favor. Obviously, round 2 is my run and charge turn, so I'm getting great positioning out of my all my eels, getting to move across the board, and you can see just throwing those 6 up. I'm going to be able to hit, between the thralls, those 6 eels, and the Italian Queen. I have a lot up there. I bring in my deep striking units with my 3 Morsar eels, my Soul Scryer, and then 3 additional Morsar eels. Again, what I'm doing here is just setting up for future turns. I'm not gonna, be getting in with any of them. Actually, I think the ones on the top right do make their charge, but the Soul Scryer and the eels on the back middle are really just actually to protect my back line and the objective from his teleport, because he could easily just throw up one small hero teleporting and did on the objective and take it from me. But as I said, those eels in the top right make their charge into the witches. The thralls get in, my Kalian Queen gets in. I tail back my unit of 6 eels. I know I'm not really going to need them in combat, and now they're tagging that unit of Canary behind them. I was thinking I might want to use my shock to shock them there, but honestly I just ended up saving it because Canary are going to die so easily, so it really wasn't necessary. But the 3 eels ended up using their shock just to try and chip a few wounds off, because I'm not going into combat there first, so it reduces his attacks that are going to be hitting my Morsar eels. So the thralls actually start off combat here, and against 1 wound models they're getting extra attacks. So with this, obviously, I'm again controlling 3 objectives again, puts me in a great spot. I kill his little hag that was beside the boat. We go into priority for round 3, and Oliver wins it again. While it would be great here, obviously I would have loved it, but it's fine. I was prepared for him to take it. Unfortunately, at this point, you can see that Oliver doesn't have a ton left. He actually has a unit of 10 Blood Sisters still kind of bottom right. They were screening out his backfield because he was really worried about my deep strikes, obviously, which I hadn't brought down until this previous turn. So he had to screen things out a little bit. I also took a auxiliary objective that was to take his home objective in his territory. And part of the reason I took that was just to make him even more fearful of my deep strike. And I think at that point he knew from the start of the game that I was coming for his main objective. So it made him, I think, play a little more defensively, especially with those Blood Sisters. And really it's like, just played into my hand in terms of, him kind of having to do what I wanted him to do, which really is, allow me to fight his units 1 or 2 at a time rather than having to, have a ton of different combats going on at once. Again, losing the double into this round is also perfectly fine because I'm attacking first, and while he has great output, his witches, if they were to go in, I'd kill a lot of them even without my 2 rend 2 damage on my eels. Again, also having the shocks there. He's in a really tough spot in this game, and there's just not really a lot he can do about it in this mission and matchup. But he ends up teleporting that unit of Blood Sisters to try and get into combat and charge actually just to get onto the objective, which they do. Marathi moves, gets into combat with the eels. Again, I'm attacking first, but I can only do 3 wounds to her, so not super significant. Marathi ends up killing initially an eel, but other than that, nothing too crazy went on, and we'll be going into bottom of round 3 with my turn coming up. Again, round 3, I'm attacking first, so I'm in a position where I'm just ready to go all in. I retreated my Ishlean eels back to play a little more defensively on my home objective. Again, putting a couple units there so he can't, kill them all at the same time. I have 2, it's 2 defensive eels on 1 wound each. So that's just kind of a little bit of an annoying nuisance more than anything. So I'm just kind of still working through what I want to do in terms of positioning. Obviously, I have now my 6 Morsar ready to go into combat on his objective. Move the 3 from the center down to go for his Blood Sisters. I want to start trying to take some of them out and really just deal with, try and get some damage on them and kill a number of them just to reduce their combat effectiveness. But otherwise, I'm circling his home objective. I have that unit in the center of the board that is going to be able to kind of, that is set up for round 4. Again, whether or not I win the turn, I basically am going to be able to kind of flex with that unit and put them wherever they need to go. As you saw, so this is the aftermath of my turn. Unfortunately, the battery ran out of the camera, right during my turn, but in the end, I killed all the witches that were on his home objective, just a block of 20. On that bottom left objective, so I lost 2 eels, but have 1 surviving. So as long as it doesn't fail its battle shock, then I'm tying up that unit, which is huge on his turn, should he win priority here. but I end up actually winning priority here. So while this game is pretty much already decided, just from, he really only has those Blood Sisters and Marathi left, and there's not enough that they're going to be able to do to really get close on the scoreboard in any kind of meaningful way. So that's the end of my round 2 game. I'm going, I scored max points again, putting me at, again, 2 rounds of max points, so I'm expecting here to end up probably, on the top table. This was a 15-person event, so expecting 2 or 3 people to be undefeated at this point, but because I'm, I've completely maxed both my games, expecting to be on the top table, knowing that I would likely face, one of the Seraphon players are likely to be there, and in fact, I do end up getting matched up against Seraphon in round 3. So stay tuned for that game. I hope you've enjoyed this different kind of style format. But again, thanks for watching as always. I do hope you've enjoyed this. Again, I have plans to get some better quality footage next time I film at an event, so hopefully the boards will look a little better. But again, thanks as always, and we'll see you in the next one.